Welcome to Red Pill Diaries, it's Craig. This is a video I wanted to do for a while and have mentioned stuff like this before. It's about Venezuela and many other countries, and first and foremost, it's about the USA and um, Eng- the English Empire, which gets called Britain, right? It's not Britain, it's got nothing to do with Britain, it's got to do with just the, uh, the old money in England. And both England and America are quite complicated in some ways because one, people rightfully stand up for their country because they know the good things about their country, right? So there's a lot of great things about America, a lot of great things about England and Britain, if you're going to pretend that it even exists, other than just a word for English imperialism, right? Because that's all it is. Um, so a lot of things happened. Like if you, so first of all, address the reasons why people stick up for their country, right? Because like any country, there's good things going for it, and like any country, the only problems you'll usually find is by the governments. They're all usually created by governments. It sounds a little bit ridiculous, and you know, like putting a band-aid on explanation, like this covers everything, right? But it really does. You got to remember that all governments are there for one reason. They are there to help themselves exist. Local government may be different. Maybe they don't start out that way, but they become that way as well. I've worked in local government. I know what it's like. Lazy people. You could basically take 90% of the staff away, and the place would still run. Just leave the best ones who are doing the work. So when it really comes down to it, if you look at the history of England going back, I'm not going to delve into it, but we all know the history of England was basically is an empire that covered, well, the sun never set on the English Empire, right? The British Empire, whatever. Uh, and through its whole time, if you look at corporations, because there's a thing I've shared quite a lot called Web of Lies. It's a POV documentary. I know it says, but anyway, I'm going to share it again. Or look, I'm on an old episode. Fuck it. I'll try to share it. I've been working all day. I'm knackered. So sorry, I'm just. I wanted to put this episode out even though I'm knackered. So basically, when you look at what they've done with the East India Company, England's really good at having these corporations that masquerade as they're effectively empire controlling corporations, right? So you really say that what we have is a kind of a puppet government, a puppet regime, and the UK always have had, that is controlled by a few oligarchs, the royal family, of course, as well. So dynasties, oligarchs, that kind of thing. Very similar to America, right? So Trump's not really in charge. I really don't think he's got that much control. I don't think he's actually that bad a guy. Um, but it's not up to him. I'm pretty sure what happened with Iran last time was done behind his back, but he wouldn't allow that to be said because he's too egotistical, right? Uh, but really, what it comes down to, I'm going to cut straight to the chase. As I said quite a while ago, America and Britain, they have two main exports, and those are money. So Britain's a money launderer. That's what it's always done. It used to do heroin running as well. So does America. CIA has done a lot of drug running, flooded their own ghettos with crack. Right? These are all facts. It's just not they're not things like a conspiracy came out. The things that got caught with their hand in the cookie jar. Um, we know that both countries manufacture consent for war continuously. We know that every country that they go into to apparently help or liberate, they usually destroy. And even when they go to help a place, let's say in Kosovo, well, look, Serbians don't remember that very well. Bigger country, of course, more people, but they were on the side of the underdog. Yet they never apply the same logic to making Scotland an independent country. So you look at Syria and Iraq and everywhere else they put their fingers on. They go in there and they plunder. So the days when you didn't have all the media and the internet that we have right now, they plundered all through Africa, and not Americans, of course, but well, actually, I think there was a lot of that going on, in the last few hundred years from America, but they didn't really come into their own until the 20th century, right? And start really raping and plundering the whole world. A lot of it was in South America, It looks like they're going back there again. It looks like the relationship's souring. They'd want something closer to home that they can rape and pillage, and that's Venezuela. Always has been. Now England a while ago, the lapdog of the USA, the special relationship, even though basically because there's so many Indians and Pakistanis and other Muslims in the UK, that's the reason why. I'm pretty sure that's the reason why it's one of the only countries in the world really that I know of. All throughout Europe, you can go to the USA without any visa, and you have to get an ESTA visa, I think it is, for the UK. So, and even for me as a green card holder, it's just easier to do that because I lost my green card and I don't live there anymore. So when I go visiting and stuff and go see friends, I just go as a tourist. There's no point going through the rigmarole. Um, so both companies produce weapons. You've got BAE Systems in the UK. You've got other ones as well, but that's the main one. You've got Raytheon, DuPont. I think DuPont might be, well, DuPont's kind of, I think they're a French American family. And then you've got Lockheed Martin, right? These are all big weapons producers. There's a lot more than that as well. There's tons more. Now, if you look at the fact that basically the emperor's new clothes situation is what we've got in front of us now. All currencies are starting to fail, but America finds itself in a very strange paradigm where instead of printing money, which would generally lead to hyperinflation, money printing, mark my words in this, money printing is actually going to lead to something different for America. It's going to lead to the state where instead of crashing its economy straight away, it's crashing its currency straight away, sorry, should I say, what they're doing is they're printing more to allow buying of more stocks. They're giving money away, helicopter money, so that the rich can buy things for pennies on the dollar. Because once even if your money is going to be worth nothing soon, the fact that it's not worth nothing now, if you print it to infinity, in the meantime you can use that money which is deemed as valuable to buy real tangible assets, and that is what's happening right now. The English elite and the American elite and the Chinese elite have been doing this already, printing money at will to buy tangible assets all across the world. What we've seen with the COVID-19 shutdown is quite clear and obvious. It's another wealth transfer, just like what happened in 2008. Although this time they're giving people a little bit of money to shut them up, right? But the reality is the same thing. The money people get to shut them up goes straight back in the pockets of the people who own the corporations, because we can see obviously that the companies that stayed open during COVID-19 are all the big corporations, your Walmarts and all that kind of stuff. The small businesses were ordered to shut, and it would make a lot more sense if the small businesses were actually the ones that were open and just controlled the flow of people, if the virus even has any truth, which I'm starting to doubt. I'm not really starting to doubt. I've had kind of doubts all the time, but I don't have proof. You know what I mean? I mean, of course, it might be a virus, but it might just be something like the flu or a cold. We're still not at the stage of having 2017 figures for the flu, for example. So it's still lower than that, despite all the fake numbers that you get in the US and England, which are way, way higher than other countries. And the good reason for that is because, well, in the USA they get paid, was it $13,000 for everyone that has COVID-19. So of course they have it. Everyone who comes in there, oh, I've broke my finger, COVID-19. I've died of a car accident, COVID-19. He died after testing positive to COVID-19 is the wording they use, right? So they're always up to jiggery pokery, and now we're at a stage where it looks like there's an end game. But this end game's not going to last very long, so I reckon the US dollar is going to pump, and what will happen is there'll be capital flight from other markets into the US dollar, and then it will last as long as they can keep the music playing, right? In the meantime, they'll be gobbling up companies all around the world, spending this fake money everywhere, and buying stocks, stock buybacks, just continuing doing what they're doing before, keeping the stock market propped up, even though it should be just completely tanking right now, because the growth it's had needs to be undone because it was false money that made it in the first place. So you ask yourself, what happens? What's the end game after this? I mean, so one thing is COVID-19 allows companies now basically the excuse to get rid of a lot of people. We knew automation was going to get rid of jobs anyway, so we're nearing the inevitable situation where it's just going to be like a neo-feudalism with a bunch of rich people and the serfs who have nothing. There'll be basically two economies, I think, in the future in each country. Those who are in the system working, and those who just simply can't afford to be in the system. and there'll be black market stuff like that. Everything you do, of course, will be even more reason to label you with a criminal record. They'll give you very easily, and who knows what the penalties will be in the future. But what in the meantime, our governments have already been attacking countries all around the world, destroying countries, plundering countries. What do you think they're going to do when they have complete control of the narrative? Because they already own. I refuse to believe that Facebook and Amazon, other data collection organizations that were allowed to become so powerful. No anti-monopoly act, none of this sort of stuff going on with any of these companies. You know what I mean? Um, and it just they seem to have a synergy with governments, right? They do their bidding. They allow them to circumvent the rights of people that are under protection in the USA, for example, the Constitution. So a company doesn't have to abide by that. Now, at the end of this all, England especially has no other industry really. It's just got weapons production. That's the big boon for it. Because without the fake money printing and money laundering of the banking sector, it doesn't. It's a very resource poor country. So the weapons situation. Well, they've always profited from war. It's always been their thing. America does too, of course, but America's got a lot more stuff going for it. It's got a lot of resources. Its people are more enterprising, less socialist, more capitalist. Although they have no idea that the country they live in isn't capitalist, it's crony capitalist, and they're feeding it through their socialist taxes. And yet, especially Republicans will defend it tooth and nail, the paradigm, because they really believe that when they protect corporations, what they're really doing is saying, "I'm a capitalist," and they have no idea that it's so far from capitalism. But anyway, this next stage, well, we've seen a few months ago with the attempted coup in Venezuela, and then also the attempted kidnapping recently, which kind of compounded that truth. Mike Pompeo pretending that he didn't send them in, although showing his hand because he wants to basically protect them. So you figure out yourself. England stole because it stole. If you don't give back gold, it belongs to the country that's asking for it back because their times are hard right now. It's stolen, you know. But it's meant to have the best, the most democratic voting system in the world because it prints out your result and it has an electronic result, so you can actually marry up against it and make a complaint if your vote doesn't match. For example, right? No other country in the world has that, and there's no other country in the world ever will have that, from what I can tell, because they don't want democracy, right? So and also the BBC never mentioned the good things that Chavez did, for example, right? I think he took someone who was close to, who wasn't that smart, who was close to him, though, who could be trusted in Madero. Madero, is that his name again? Yeah, I think it is. But Guaido was obviously a US, or just not a US, a globalist corporate puppet, right? And not everything. That's the thing. I probably should stop saying US so much because it often isn't that. I think many times what the US is kind of, the strange thing about the US, even compared to England, is that it's a network of government departments and corporations that run the US. And no one thing has control, although I'm pretty sure there are entities in the background that have more control than both the president, the Congress, and everything else. They're the ones that pull the strings of people like Nancy Pelosi. They're the reason why people like Nancy Pelosi became a fifth of a billionaire while serving her country, right? These people are all corrupt, especially in the Democrat side, but definitely not limited to it. Now, you can say what you want about Trump. I don't mind him, but at the same time, I have to look at the obvious. The guy was in debt a lot. He was an actor on TV. He might just be acting now, you know. But he does stick up for the narratives, and you've got to ask yourself, if you really are a guy who's kind of woken up and you're flushing out the people who are truly evil in your regime, because it is evil to destroy a country and create human slavery, a system where basically children get sold as sex slaves. That happened because of Hillary Clinton and Obama. So, and of course, it happened before with Bush, and it happened before. So it doesn't matter what side it is. They're serving the same agenda. The hit list that included a whole bunch of countries from Syria and Libya and all these. The hit list is still getting hit. Um, so you know, again, people going about, oh, Zionist agenda. You'll find that there's just as much exception in Israel to what their regime does, Netanyahu does, as there is outside of Israel. I think, in percentage wise. Hey, look, I don't know that exactly. I just know that there's a lot of voices in Israel that are against it, especially in the Hasidic Jewish community. So, and then another thing that you get in the US, for example, is this bipartisan bullshit. People will argue with you, and you're arguing with someone on a point that any other American would argue with them about. And because you're arguing with them, they say that you're anti-American. Why do you hate our freedoms? And they have no idea how unfree they are. That's why I don't live there anymore, right? Because I can choose to live there. They can't choose to live where I live. I can choose to live in many places. I choose not to live in New Zealand. I choose not to live in the USA because they're not free at all. All right. You're free to make money. You're free to pay your taxes, and you're free to make, in my case, a lot less money than I made anywhere else in the world. So, and pay more taxes too. So I don't think it's very free at all. I don't feel like a capitalist more than other countries. I feel like a crony capitalist or corporate welfare socialist paying into a tax fund for a bunch of crooks, right? So what I think the US and England are doing, the lapdog, there's no honor among thieves, right? And I really believe that all of our governments, regardless of what country you're from, there could be a handful of a few, maybe Iceland, but there's not many. For the most part, all governments are crooks, filled with people who are just corrupt, and the 1 or 2% that are actually there to make things change, like I mentioned, Thomas Mattei, I think it was, in the Republican Party. Um, a lot of people will hate some of his policies because he's really pro-gun, but he's someone who's actually got fortitude. He's got integrity. So they are there, you know what I mean? But you might not like their politics. That's the simple thing, right? So even when they are there, you're trying to keep everyone happy. It's not going to happen. So what I believe is actually afoot right now is a situation where all these things culminating together, the COVID-19 stops reporting. The lapdog social media like Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, they systematically block true news. If you say anything that's truthful about what's going on right now, you'll be blocked. Doesn't matter if you're a PhD, as we found, who's been a specialist, world renowned. Doesn't matter if you have been the advisor of the government. Doesn't matter if you're the guy who wrote the Biowarfare Act in America. Doesn't matter what level it is of credibility you have, you'll be discredited as some crazy kook. And then the morons, the system slaves, who are usually just working class gits who have nothing worked out at all in life, they're the ones who will vehemently defend the government, and yet they're in some ways more adversely affected by government policy than anyone else in their own nation, except for those that are getting bombed outside their own country. So I think what they're doing is obviously a lot of sneaky stuff behind the scenes right now in other countries. You already saw the USA helping Saudi bomb Yemen again. This is really disgusting. It's going on, one of the poorest countries in the world. I'm not sure if there's something spiritual about this, where there's these they're just evil creatures and they really get their kicks. If you add up all the millions of pigs that got slaughtered in China, for example, and the all the kids suffering in Libya, I think they probably feed off the energy. I've said it in a few other videos, because it doesn't make sense where all this suffering going on, right? It's a manufactured killing. So sorry, production line killing. So what I think they're going to be doing is getting to the stage where the two most powerful weapons producing nations in the world that know their game's up. No more money laundering for you, England, because no one trusts you. You don't have the fake credibility that you had before. America's going to be the same, and then it will be less spin, more truth, and the truth will be basically fascism, global fascism, and they'll just take from countries as they please, because we take it for granted, the situation that that the UN stops this happening, and the NATO stops that. We also saw not Bill Clinton. We also saw Trump talking negatively about NATO. Not that I can think of anything great they've done myself either, but they were put together to stop other wars happening after the Second World War. Um, this is this you have to think about these things and think what could be the reason why they're attacking these institutions, why England hates the Human Rights Commission so much, for example. Um, so yeah, all these things together makes you think that they're getting to a stage where they want to have their own people imprisoned like they do in America. It's insane how many people are jailed there. So they're going to treat their own people worse, have less rights, as you're seeing all the time, the removal of civil liberties constantly in both countries. It's so much easier to end up in jail all the time, while at the same time doing whatever the hell they feel like doing in foreign countries and just constantly spinning a narrative. You know why? Because the majority of people who are programmable sheep will believe it. Um, you know what? I think they even have doubts, but they choose a side. It's like I really believe that when most Americans talk about the politicians, they are talking about it like it's Miami Dolphins or whoever it is, or the Dallas Cowboys or something. Because the way they go on about politics, that is the way they hoot and holler and everything in these rallies is bordering on insanity. It's like group insanity, and I know a lot of Americans think the same way. So this is not anti-American. I know a lot of Americans who think this is nuts, right? They don't subscribe to it, and that'll be why most Americans are actually independents. Although the parties they have never, even if they all went for one independent party that was a kind of hybrid cross between the Greens and Libertarian Party, they could never get in because the system's completely rigged. It's a two-party system, and it's, as you can see, like I said before, by the joint agenda. It's not really a two-part system either. It's a single-party system with two faces pretending to be choices. It is really no difference. In England's the same. I mean, you could really look at the simple fact they've put forward a rapist, an alleged rapist, but the evidence is so strong. It's like, you know, it was kind of like the Kavanaugh case. I think that she was lying in the Kavanaugh case, but I think he was lying too, right? Well, in this case, I think she's telling the truth completely, and he might be lying, but it might be like, I don't know. I've raped so many women, I just can't keep track. That's It's probably more likely that, and the fact that he's completely senile. So they're putting forward a guy with senile dementia. It's well, put it this way: I've seen a lot of people with senile dementia. My disabled auntie years ago was paired up with a lady who's like a midget, and then a lot of the people they knew were in these homes and stuff like that. It was quite depressing going around. This in Glasgow years ago. So I've seen a lot of people who had dementia in these places and these care home places, and he's got classic signs. That's why so many people are mentioning it, because so many people have known people with dementia, and it's like, oh, I know what that looks like. So they put forward someone who cannot possibly win. They sabotage Bernie Sanders, even though he could have actually won. Thank God he isn't, because the guy's a turncoat piece of crap. Um, and he's just given false hope to his followers for years. It's a real shame for progressives, but I mean, that's you get that. That teach you for believing in politics, isn't it? It's kind of your own fault. Tulsi Gabbard, who I actually did have some belief in, complete turncoat piece of shit as well. So no point there. Oh no, she's setting herself up for next time. Fuck off. The whole thing's fake bullshit. You don't bring down a system by being part of the system. Just I'm sick of hearing that sort of crap. Oh, I'm gonna fix it from the inside. Yeah, sure you are, just like everyone else. And if you do try to fix it from the inside, you just get assassinated. So what ends up happening is the basically single party, the red and blue striped Tories in the UK, and the Republican Democrat Party in America. They just rule. That's it. They rule those countries. Behind the scenes, they have their strings pulled by people like the Queen, and the war machine needs to keep on going to generate money for the oligarchs and the basically all those with their snout in the trough. And these people, from what we can see, even though that they'll never take it to court with people like Prince Andrew and Bill Clinton, um, they all seem to associate with pedophiles and pedivores and stuff like that. So they love spreading chaos. It's their thing. They've been caught out many times doing the various things, always try to act like philanthropists, like Bill Gates, for example, the guy who can't conceal his um, his delight every time he mentions words like inoculating everyone, or sorry, you know, digital ID, or everyone needs to be vaccinated, and the famously just a couple of days ago, or maybe yesterday, um, 35 million people are out of work. And it's like big smile on his face. He can't. It's villain's delight. He just cannot conceal his delight when everything is going bad. Pushing this constant narrative, him and Melinda Gates. No, actually, if you look at the evidence, the more you basically, we've got an overpopulation problem, and we think we can fix this because, okay, studies have actually shown, studies have shown, right? Oh, the study, look, look over there, there's a study going on, you know. Studies have shown that, look, I don't care if we depopulate. I actually don't care about most of mankind. I don't care if I die, as long as my dog's all right, as I've said before. But that's the thing. That's why they can't have anything over me, because I don't really care. Um, I mean, I care about certain things, but I don't. They can't hold my life over me, right? People like me, they can't just do that. How hold your life over you? You know what I mean? The worst thing they can do to me is lock me up, and that will probably happen one day, I would say. But even then, I would just go internal, and yeah, yeah. Anyway, my point is, they're going to start warring because they're going to go back to what they used to do before, which was just they don't answer to anyone. We do what we want. We took it for granted. All these rules. Oh, there's rules of engagement. Well, rules of engagement get broken all the time, so they don't mind breaking those. The law of the land in both U.S. and England get broken all the time, and this will just be an extension of that. They're like, okay, what we have now, our cash cow is gone because cash will be worth nothing soon. We have none of us have been mining Bitcoin because Britain rapes its people so much that it's so expensive for electricity that we can't, even though we steal most of it from Scotland, from hydroelectric power stations and oil and the nuclear power stations we've dotted all around Scotland and England as well. Uh, and America's expensive in most places too, except for maybe Texas and a few other spots, Alaska, and yet they're not really mining on a big scale Bitcoin. So they haven't taken part in this economy except for those people who've been mining it themselves from the get go, which I think you'll see a case where they'll basically misappropriate people's Bitcoin by threat of jail, right? And that's how they'll steal your Bitcoin off you if you live in America. This is another reason why I left. The country had nothing to do with any Bitcoin that I own. And nothing to do with it going up in value. So definitely had nothing to do with any gains that I'm going to take from it whenever that happens one day. So yeah, I just think they're going to start war and start killing people all around the world. Um, whatever way, whatever narrative, the Venezuela situation right now, they just found out England has another department that's never been known about, some other secretive department that no one's ever even heard about, and they were planning to it was about architecting, about reconstruction or architecting of the nation. So I mean, it's very telling, isn't it? It's a sovereign country. They've got election systems that many say are rigged. They've got a first past the post system, which by definition is a rigged system, right? It's non-democratic, and the the USA has rigged voting machines and has for a long time and doesn't seem to want to change that in the primaries. So both countries are a shadow of democracy, not even a shadow of democracy, right? They're nothing close. And yet they have the audacity to talk about other countries and other countries need to be fixed, or other countries are criminals, and yet they're the countries that go in and bomb and destroy places. They are the terrorist nations that are pointing at everyone else. And that's the crazy upside down world that we have, is that the two usual suspects, the two worst in their the worst in their field, are the U.S. and England. and they always point at others and say it's always the pot calling the kettle black. It's it should be a tired narrative that people going, hang on, England or America are saying that. That must mean they're doing that. That's how many times it's happened throughout history, and yet people just will not accept it. The football team mentality: go red, go blue. So that's my call. Is that what they're up to? Is to move into a new stage of militarization, and that won't mean lots of jobs for you as soldiers. It'll mean maybe jobs for drone pilots, and it'll mean jobs for people fixing the robotic soldiers, because that's what's probably coming through companies like Boston Dynamics. Not so they can have, not so they can actually make people safe and stop so many people dying. It's not about that. They don't care how many people they have to put in the meat grinder. It's so that they can have a force that will never question them. They can be programmed to obey, and at the same time, they don't have to pay wages. They don't have to put up with the personal problems that you get, PTSD and all these other things, and they don't have to worry about, as I say, they just obey. Go kill all those people there. Soldiers won't do it. If it's like, hang on, that person over there is a friend of my mum's, and blah blah blah, they'll turn down orders. Robot soldiers won't. That's what we have ahead of us. So it's kind of like the Terminator situation, really, if you think about it. Um, Now, there's that. They know they're behind on AI, so both companies are scrambling to catch up. They'll probably get there with the help of Israel as well. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe I think a lot of countries are keeping their tech separate, like South Korea and China. I don't really know if North Korea is doing very much, but you can be almost guaranteed, even if Russia's doing anything, it'll be separated as well. There's not going to be joint ventures with AI, and that's why these companies are so important. It's the data. People don't realize it's the data sets. I used to be one of the people who said, that put it this way, they know everything about you already, and I wasn't thinking of the fact it takes running data as well. So it doesn't matter if something knows my whole life, whatever I did, the first girl I ever beat it off over, whatever it might be. It's knowing what you're doing now when you walk down the street, when you go on a certain app. It's the continual trend analysis that allows not just yourself, but society overall to be predicted. This is the kind of premise of the Minority Report, that movie years ago. A lot of the movies with Tom Cruise are truth drops. Um, I think he's a horrible person, but so it makes you think: is it a system truth drop because they have to show their hand because it's part of the rules that they have, or is it Illuminati and stuff like that, or even Scientology? Maybe it's all linked in. I don't know. I was just talking the other day about John Travolta and his status as someone who can kill people. It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's going to be a case where you will have a few people who will be cheering on the government, and anyone who doesn't will be in the gulag, or you know absconding, or whatever it's called, to another country. I'm very tired right now. Okay, I'm gonna leave it that there. Yeah, I just wanted to call that one out because I really think I've been thinking about this for quite a while and thinking, what do they have left? When the banking system's gone, they don't need to print money for their. They don't even need to keep anyone happy. They can just pretending it all matters. Let their own countries crumble into chaos and then steal the last little bits. Because when it's in chaos, it'll be, oh well, this person wants to sell their house. Right, so I'm taking your house off you. Oh, I can get it now at pennies on the dollar because you're trying to get out of this war-torn little civil war town that you're in, or this dead West Virginia backwater. You know what I mean? The whole town's dying and everyone's selling up. That's when they nab up things. They're architects of chaos. That's what they are, and they use it to unhinge the God-given rights and the earth, because the earth belongs to all. It doesn't really belong to all of us. The earth belongs to itself, and we belong to it. And they changed the paradigm round. Okay, first of all, you got ownership, right? Now we've got ownership of you. Now they're continually playing a game of cards where the game's rigged. So after enough games, there is nothing left in the hands of anyone else, just the house, and the house being the government, these governments. All right, I'm rambling on now. I'll leave it at that. Have a good one. Bye.